What is good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode brought to you by the League FFB. Today, I thought we would do a fun little exercise, and I wanted to compare the 2023 rookie class with this upcoming 2024 rookie class. Let's tier these players together so you can kind of see how I am viewing the 2024 rookies in comparison to what we saw with these 2023 rookies last year. We can kind of see how I'm viewing both of these classes moving forward. But that's what I want to do today. So without wasting any more time, why don't we just hop right into this video and let's start talking about the first tier. So starting it off here in my tier 1, I currently have 5 players in this tier. We'll talk about each of these guys, but the first player in this tier for me is going to be Stroud. He is the number 1 player out of these classes. What we saw from him in 2023 only shows that he should be valued this highly. I think there's some other players that definitely belong in this tier as well, some specifically from the 2024 class, but Stroud, everything he showed us in 2023, there's nothing to debate. He is the number 1 prospect right now, or at least should be the number 1 prospect from the 2 classes moving forward. Now, the second player that I do believe should belong in this tier 1 is going to be Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams, we all know the comparisons that he is getting right now. Kyler Murray, Patrick Mahomes, I see some Aaron Rodgers in here as too. He is going to be the number 1 pick. He's going to a situation with Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, Cole Kmet. There's going to be lots of options for Caleb Williams here. And if he lives up to the hype, if he lives up to the potential, we think the potential is a quarterback 1 for your Dynasty Fantasy Football rosters. I truly do believe that is what Caleb Williams is going to be. And for me, he is my QB2 out of these 2 classes combined, and a guy that I am definitely considering in this S tier. But that's not all I have for the S tier. I also have 3 more players, and we'll talk about these guys a little bit quicker. We have Anthony Richardson in here, part of the S tier for me. We also have our first wide receiver, Marvin Harrison Jr. in this S tier, and we have our first and only running back in this S tier as well. That is going to be Bijan Robinson. So Anthony Richardson, Marvin Harrison Jr., and Bijan Robinson, all of these players we expect to be top players at their position moving forward. Anthony Richardson, he obviously had the shoulder injury. He showed us some flashes early on. I think he has the rushing upside and the arm talent to be a top 12 quarterback for your Dynasty Fantasy Football rosters, which would make him a QB1 for your fantasy football teams. I think he has all of the tools that we need. Obviously, they extended Michael Pittman Jr. They're going to continue adding more weapons. Obviously, the extension to Jonathan Taylor as well. Anthony Richardson should be a very good dynasty quarterback for you and a cornerstone piece in that quarterback room for you moving forward. Now we go on to Marvin Harrison Jr. Talk about expectations. Marvin Harrison Jr. right now being valued as a top 4, top 5 dynasty wide receiver coming into the NFL without knowing the landing spot, without knowing some of the other variables. That is where he's being valued. The same breath as Justin Jefferson, Ja'Marr Chase, CeeDee Lamb, Amon-Ra St. Brown. This is the expectations of Marvin Harrison Jr. Do we expect him to hit those ceilings? I think there's a good chance that he does. I think it's very lofty expectations, but there is no doubt that this is the best wide receiver prospect that we have seen in years, probably since Ja'Marr Chase came in. But Marvin Harrison Jr. as a prospect clears everything that we saw come in from the 2023 class, and a guy that I'm very confident building around moving forward. Moving on to Bijan Robinson, again, another very, very, very good running back prospect. This guy was getting some of the comparisons as the best running back prospect we have seen since Ezekiel Elliott. I think that still remains true. Unfortunately, he had the Arthur Smith drama and some of the other stuff that happened as a rookie. I'm not going to say we need to throw that entire season out the window and completely disregard it, but that is not who Bijan Robinson and this Atlanta Falcons offense is going to be moving forward. I fully expect them to lean on Bijan Robinson going into year 2, and this is still my dynasty RB1. Now we're going to move on to that tier 2. This tier has 6 players in it. We'll talk about the first 3 guys in this tier. The first player is going to be Jahmyr Gibbs. The second player here is going to be Puka Nacua. If I can find him on this board, Puka Nacua, he is the second player. And then Sam LaPorta is going to be the third player on this board. All of these players had incredible 2023 seasons. Talk about exceeding expectations. That's what this group of guys did. Obviously, Jahmyr Gibbs, we thought he was going to be a very good running back coming into the NFL. I don't know if we expected him to outproduce Bijan Robinson. That was probably not on anybody's bingo card for the 2023 season, but he got the draft capital. It seemed like early on they just wanted to kind of work him into the offense, and it worked. He was a league winner for you down the stretch in Dynasty Fantasy Football Championships, and I think Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be a top 3, top 4 running back in your Dynasty Fantasy Football leagues moving forward, and this is a guy that I am more than comfortable leaning on in my Dynasty Fantasy Football leagues. Now we're talking about Puka Nacua. This guy had zero expectations. I don't think anybody expected Puka Nacua to be the guy that he was when he was coming out of BYU. Then he went to the Los Angeles Rams. Obviously, he had the Cooper Kupp injury in the same wide receiver room that opened up a bunch of volume and a bunch of opportunity for Puka Nacua. He exceeded expectations. This is a guy who balled out. I think there's some risk with Puka Nacua. Some people are going to probably view Puka Nacua as a polarizing player, but this is a guy who, if he was in this 2024 class, I think we'd have to have a conversation with him as the wide receiver 2 overall in this 2024 class. Him or Malik Nabers, that's probably who it would be, but Puka Nacua definitely deserves to be up here in this tier. And then Sam LaPorta. Sam LaPorta had the greatest tight end season of all time, and just like Jahmyr Gibbs, he is in that very good offense there in Detroit. I expect him to continue to be getting a heavy workload in Detroit for the foreseeable future. And the tight end position is so hard to hit on when you have guys that ball out like this as a rookie. It's hard not to see where that ceiling could be for Sam LaPorta. We're obviously seeing a little bit of a decline of some of the older guys. Some of these guys that we've relied on in the past at the tight end position, Sam LaPorta looks to be the next man up into that elite tier, and I think I like him more than Brock Bowers right now if we were combining the classes. But now let's talk about the last 3 players in this tier here in tier 2, because we still have 3 more guys to talk about. These guys are all going to be rookies in the 2024 class. The first guy we're going to be talking about here is going to be Malik Nabers. I just mentioned him when I was talking about Puka Nacua. We're also going to have Jayden Daniels and Maye in this tier as well. So all of these guys obviously coming from the 2024 rookie class here. We don't know landing spots, but Malik Nabers looks the part. We fully expect him to be a top 10 pick in this NFL draft. I think he is going to be a baller at the next level. Jayden Daniels and Maye, also guys that we are expecting to probably get top 3, maybe even top 5 draft capital for both of these guys. Daniels has the rushing upside. Maye has the very talented arm. But overall, these are quarterbacks that I think are better than some of the guys from the 2023 class. You obviously had the Bryce Young, you had the Will Levis, and some of the other guys there in 2023. I'm taking Daniels and Maye over those guys right now. And I think these guys deserve to be in a tier 2 where, yes, we don't know the landing spots yet, but we think we have a good idea of where they would be. And I do love the prospects of Maye and Jayden Daniels. Now moving on to my tier 3 here. In tier 3, we have 4 players. The players in this tier are going to be Brock Bowers. We also are going to have Odunze in this tier. And then from the 2023 class, I also think that Achane and Dalton Kincaid both belong in this tier as well. Brock Bowers, Odunze. We talk about the tiers of this 2024 class. There is 3 tiers at the top. It is Caleb Williams, Marvin Harrison Jr. In that second tier for the 2024 rookies, it is Malik Nabers, Jayden Daniels, and Maye. And then in that third tier, Odunze and Brock Bowers. Both of these guys we expect to be very good. I think Brock Bowers has to be considered below Sam LaPorta right now. And I think that's probably going to be a hot take to people just because of the hype that Brock Bowers has got coming out of Georgia. We've deemed him as a generational, the next Travis Kelce. He's getting these types of comparisons, and I think people are going to run with that. But looking at what Sam LaPorta did as a rookie, if Brock Bowers does that, that is almost the expectation for Bowers. He has to have the best rookie tight end season of all time. He has to beat Sam LaPorta's rookie season if he wants to maintain that value. I think for me, we've already seen Sam LaPorta do it. We got to value him above Brock Bowers right now. But Odunze, he's another player that I'm very excited about. Again, a guy probably going in the top 15 of this NFL draft, and a guy that I think we can lean on as a prospect, as a cornerstone player on our Dynasty Fantasy Football teams moving forward. But then you have the other guys from that 2023 class, Achane, Dalton, Kincaid. And it's tough for me to think Achane should be here because the running back position is so devalued in Dynasty Fantasy Football. But when I look at this class and I look at the fantasy points per game that Achane has been able to put together as a rookie in 2023, and then you look at the running back class of 2024, Achane would be the running back 1 in this year's class. And that's honestly just the way that I'm viewing it. If Achane was in this class, bar none, tier of his own, running back 1. That's just the way it would be. So I think Achane has value when you look at him in comparison to the last 2 classes. And I think he needs to remain here in this tier 3 just because he has been a big difference maker when he's been on the field. And then we move on to Dalton Kincaid, obviously a first round talent going to the Buffalo Bills. They just lose Gabe Davis. Now they're going to have to lean on Dalton Kincaid a little bit more. Obviously, they added Curtis Samuel, but I think that Dalton Kincaid will be leaned on more as a rookie. I don't view him higher than Brock Bowers, but it's probably pretty close. I think he should remain at least in the same tier right now as we look at them, because Dalton Kincaid, probably to some would say a disappointing start to the season, probably a very disappointing start to the season to some, but as he got down the stretch, Dalton Kincaid kind of broke out, and I think that that's more of what we're going to be looking like for his future here in Buffalo. And I really do like Dalton Kincaid as a cornerstone tight end piece for your Dynasty Fantasy Football rosters. Now, moving on to our Tier 4. Tier 4 has 5 players in this tier, and this whole tier is a bunch of wide receivers. So the first player in this tier is going to be Zay Flowers. The second player we're going to be talking about is going to be Jaxon Smith-Njigba. We're also going to be talking about Jordan Addison. We're going to be talking about Tank Dell, and we're going to be talking about Rashee Rice. So all of these wide receivers obviously coming from the 2023 class. And I think we had people who exceeded expectations and people who fell short of expectations. And that's where we're going to really start with Zay Flowers. I think Zay Flowers, this is a guy who met the expectations. I don't think anybody expected Zay to be the wide receiver one in this class. So far, he hasn't been, but he's been very good. I think he is going to remain the wide receiver one for the Baltimore Ravens. And maybe if you're viewing Mark Andrews as the number one target, sure, I still support that decision. But Zay Flowers looks to be the number one wide receiver target in this offense, and I think he should remain so moving forward. And I do think it is a good offense that has a very safe floor for Zay Flowers, so there isn't a lot of risk here. But with that being said, I will say every wide receiver in this tier, whichever order you want to shift this in, I don't have any gripes with it. I actually think most of these guys are all interchangeable. That's why I like the tiers. I like viewing them as one cluster, and you can kind of pick who you like in this tier. But that's going to move us to Jaxon Smith-Njigba. JSN obviously was a guy that I was very high on coming into the 2023 class. I think a lot of people were very high on JSN. He was my wide receiver one, and I almost had him in a tier of his own until we got the landing spot for Jordan Addison in Minnesota, and then I went up on him just a little bit more. But Jaxon Smith-Njigba didn't get a lot of opportunity in 2023. Obviously, he's playing behind DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. Didn't seem like they were really getting him on the field a lot, but as the season dragged on a little bit deeper into the year, it seemed like Jaxon Smith-Njigba was getting a little bit more involved in this offense, and now they have extended Tyler Lockett. They've given him another extension. I think more of that is just for cap flexibility, but it's still nothing great for us nonetheless if you do like Jaxon Smith-Njigba. I do believe in the talent. I don't know if he's going to give us those top 12 numbers ever that we wanted from Jaxon Smith-Njigba. This is a guy that, yes, if you can still buy into him as a depreciated asset, still support doing that. But I think the hope for JSN is a little bit more bleak than it was just a year ago. And this is not me sitting here and saying that I don't like JSN at all. It's just I definitely have tempered my expectations for JSN since he was drafted as a rookie. But this is a guy that I still see the pathway. It's just a little bit murky. Now that takes us over to Jordan Addison. Jordan Addison obviously had to fill in for Justin Jefferson, as Justin Jefferson was injured a lot this year. Then he had Kirk Cousins, who was also injured this year. So it wasn't really a great view as to what Jordan Addison could be in this offense, but we did see the flashes. I think he did look good in spurts. So it was a promising rookie season for the most part for Jordan Addison. Obviously, we have quarterback concerns moving forward. Who is going to be the starting quarterback for this offense? Is there going to be enough passing volume to go around to feed TJ Hawkinson, to feed Justin Jefferson, and get Jordan Addison involved as well? I think those are question marks that need to be solved, and I think they will be solved in the future, but I still like Jordan Addison, but he feels more like a boom-bust wide receiver 2 for your Dynasty Fantasy Football teams than he would ever be a Dynasty wide receiver 1. And now we get to talk about Tank Dell. Tank Dell is everybody's favorite player, it seems like, and a player that for whatever reason, it feels like I'm lower on than consensus. And this isn't me saying that I hate Tank Dell. I like what Tank Dell did, but I think the production that Tank Dell was putting together, and obviously the receiver profile that he has as a prospect coming into the NFL, these are outliers for Tank Dell. I don't know if this is something that's going to be very sustainable for Tank Dell, but when you look at where he's being valued in startups and on Keep Trade Cut, this is a guy who's going a lot higher than even some of the guys that we talked about in that tier above him in tier 3. I like Tank Dell. I like him being tied to CJ Stroud. Those are good things for his future. I do think that Nico Collins is probably going to be an issue for him moving forward. He feels more like a boom-bust player to me. This is a big playability type of guy, kind of similar to that Deshaun Watson, Will Fuller type of boom-bust that we had when they were in Houston together. That's what I think it is more like with CJ Stroud and Tank Dell. And that isn't to say that Tank Dell isn't a better wide receiver than Will Fuller. I think he probably will be. But that being said, I don't know if he is going to be a guy that I'm relying on as my wide receiver 1 on my Dynasty Fantasy Football team. And I think some people do value him that way. So this is a guy that if I could tear down down in the same tier where we have Zay Flowers, JSN, Jordan Addison, Rashee Rice, if I could tier down and get extra value on top, I'm more than happy to do that. And now the final player in this tier is going to be Rashee Rice. He did perform very well for us, and he exceeded the expectations for us in Kansas City this year. Obviously, it helped him that there was zero competition for targets there for the majority of the season. The wide receivers that he had to compete with were virtually guys that should not be on NFL rosters, if we are just being frankly honest. But now they have signed Marquise Hollywood Brown. Marquise Hollywood Brown coming in. He's going to be a wide receiver in this offense. They might even add another guy in the NFL draft. I think those things could probably hurt Rashee from a target share standpoint, but I do think that Rashee is so good after the catch, and I think he's going to still be valuable in this offense. And some people may debate whether Hollywood Brown or Rashee Rice are going to be the #1 wide receiver for Patrick Mahomes. I think it's going to be Rice, but that is probably up for debate in some of your leagues. So if that is the case, maybe buy low on Rashee Rice right now as they continue to add a couple other weapons. And now we're going to move on to my tier 5. This is probably the last tier that we're going to do today because this video is getting a little bit lengthier than I would like it to be. But this tier has 6 players. We're going to talk about all of them. This is going to be Bryce Young in this tier, JJ McCarthy in this tier, Brian Thomas Jr., Adonai Mitchell, Troy Franklin, and Jayden Reed of the Green Bay Packers. So this tier right here, let's start it off with the quarterbacks. Bryce Young, less than ideal rookie year. But going into year 2, he gets a wide receiver upgrade with Deontay Johnson now in Carolina. They've done a little bit to help that offensive line. They've helped that defensive line. It seems like they're starting to improve this team just a little bit. They also have a new head coach there. Dave Canales coming from Tampa Bay, who did help kind of reemerge Geno Smith, did help reemerge Baker Mayfield. Maybe he can do that same thing with Bryce Young. And I think for me, when we look at Bryce Young, this is a guy that I really liked coming into 2023. I think this is a guy that probably missed the ceiling on Bryce Young, but I do think he still has that quarterback 2 type of potential for your Dynasty Fantasy Football rosters. So a guy that I would potentially be buying low on right now, but we definitely have to bump him down into this tier 5. And when we look at him with the 2024 class combined, and this is now a guy that I am viewing as the QB6 in these combined classes in the same tier as JJ McCarthy. So obviously a fall off for Bryce Young in my rankings, but still, I will say I do believe in Bryce Young just a little bit. But we definitely have tempered those expectations. Now, moving on to the next player, it is going to be JJ McCarthy. And JJ McCarthy, he has a very interesting profile. He wasn't asked to throw a lot at Michigan, but I feel like he can make the NFL throws. I feel like he does make the NFL throws when he is asked to do it. I think for JJ McCarthy, it's going to be landing spot dependent. There are going to be some landing spots where JJ McCarthy, if he is selected to those teams, I think he could be set up for failure. This is a guy who is going to need to be developed at the next level just a little bit more than some of these other prospects, and he is going to need a good culture, a good surrounding cast, and a good coach in order to do those things, and that is why it is going to be dependent for JJ McCarthy. So depending on where he lands, I'm either going to be very in or very out on JJ McCarthy, but this is a guy that I'm viewing in the same tier as Bryce Young, and some people may dislike JJ McCarthy. I think when you look at the actual tools of what he can do, there's a lot to like, and I think JJ McCarthy is a very worthy pick, probably in the top 8 picks of your Superflex rookie drafts, depending on where he gets drafted to, but somebody that I definitely believe in depending on the circumstances. And now we have these 4 wide receivers, so let's talk about them all very quickly and we'll get on out of here. We got Brian Thomas Jr., Adonai Mitchell, and Troy Franklin. These guys are my wide receivers 4, 5, and 6 in the 2024 class. I view them all in the same tier. I think all of these guys bring things to NFL offenses that are going to improve these offenses and have fantasy relevance. Now, the issue is, where are these guys going to be drafted? It's obviously hard to project these 2 classes combined moving forward when we don't know where they're going to be, but I think these guys are going to get the draft capital. I think they're going to get landing spots where they can utilize their strengths, and all of these guys probably have a little bit of things to work on as a professional. They're not as fine-tuned as some of the other wide receivers in this class like Odunze, Nabers, and Marvin Harrison, but obviously these guys are still very good wide receivers and players that I would be building my teams around. Brian Thomas, Adonai Mitchell, Troy Franklin, all of these guys deserve to be in this tier. And then the last and final player is Jayden Reed. Jayden Reed kind of bursted out on the scene as the Deebo Samuel light. You're going to hear guys in this class be compared to him as well, but Jayden Reed, man, was a baller in 2023. A guy that I was a lot higher on than consensus. I will admit it. If you guys want to go back and look at the tape, I was higher on Jayden Reed than consensus, so this isn't a victory lap, but I did like the kid. He is going to finish this tier for me definitely a player that I think has a lot of upside and a lot of opportunity still in this offense. People are going to say that this offense is crowded. They're going to have Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, Luke Musgrave, Tucker Kraft, all of these guys in this offense. I think Jayden Reed is the most talented wide receiver in this room. Whether that's hot takey or not, it's up for you to debate, but I think he is the most talented wide receiver in this room. And like I said, the last player we are going to be talking about today. So all right, guys, that was about 26 players, I think, of these two classes combined, kind of how I am viewing them, tiering them moving forward. If you guys like that video, go ahead and hit the like button. That is the best free way to show this channel some support, and it truly does help a small independent fantasy creator like myself out when you guys do those things. So make sure you're liking, make sure you're subscribing to the channel, hitting the notification bell. That way you guys never miss any future uploads. And also do me a favor, go into the comment section right now. Tell me who you like in the 2024 class, how you view them compared to the 2023 class. Even if you want to tell me what I got right and what I got wrong in today's video, I would appreciate all of those things from you guys. So do me the favor, support me there. Last but not least, join my Discord. I do have a free Discord linked in the description. We're in there talking Dynasty Fantasy Football 24/7, 365. So like I said, free to join, no risk in doing that. With all those things out of the way, you know what to do. We'll see you on the next video. Peace out.